Recording.
There you go.
Fab. Thanks, Melody.
Okay, yeah.
And welcome everyone to this meeting. We're so grateful to you for making the time to come and join us and to hear more about Ignite 22. I'll just give you a flavour of what's going to happen. There's no time frame around this meeting. I can't imagine why we would need longer than about 40 minutes to an hour. Depending on the questions and the discussion, of course, it could generate into something fruitful and wonderful and participative. But really our purpose in arranging this meeting was information sharing, so that we could tell you, if you weren't there, what happened, give you some information about it, and invite you to join us on the ongoing journey that we've started. So feel free to be as participative or as non-participative as you would like to. Some people just love to listen in, others love to chip in, so do as you wish this evening. But I'll start really by taking you through what happened at Ignite 22. We've produced a report. Now, you may have been put off by the length of this report, but you'll be pleased to know that you only actually needed to read the first 5 pages of it. And those pages were also fairly brief, we hope, and to the point. So if you didn't have a chance to do that, you may not have caught sight of the report, then don't worry, because we'll be drawing out the key findings from the first 5 pages. So we want to tell you why it happened, how it happened, and what came out of it. And then we'll move on to talking and thinking about what comes next. And then there'll be a time for questions and open discussion. So I hope that sounds like the sort of thing you were expecting when you signed up or logged in this evening. I'd like to obviously introduce myself. There's a couple of people I haven't met here. I'm Steph. As you know, I am tasked with the job of pioneer ministry for this team in Cheam, but also looking across the group that we're forming in Cheam, Worcester Park and Belmont. Now, I'm not the only one with pioneering in my job title, because actually all of us as clergy and as a wider ministry team have a particular brief around outreach and developing new ways of doing things. I'm just the one who's tasked with having a bit of a strategic overview as to what's going on in the whole area. So that's where I'm coming from. I'd also like to introduce you to Melody, who has been working really closely with me on all of this. She's giving you a wave. She's co-hosting the meeting with me. Melody, do you want to introduce yourself? Save me putting words in your mouth.
Thanks, Steph. I think most people know me. I'm Melody, sort of involved with St Dunstan's for a while. I'm also quite heavily involved with the school as a volunteer and as a parent governor. But yeah, hopefully I should have met most of you. But if not, come and say hello to me. I'm always up for a quick chat. So yeah.
Thanks, Melody. And if you've seen anything around Ignite 22, the report, the logo, anything that you think, oh my gosh, that's amazing. It was Melody. It was Melody who did it. Ignite just wouldn't have got off the ground without her. So I'm really lucky to have been working with her on this. So why did we do it in the first place? Well, our vision for Ignite 22 was to create the space for ideas to emerge that our parishes could collaborate on further. And our aim is to really be a pioneering community of churches who are seeking to reach out and serve our communities in new ways. But pioneering is one of those words that can incite all sorts of different reactions in people. And I've been going around the churches having conversations about pioneering, and all sorts of emotions and thoughts are expressed around it. So we thought it'd be really helpful to just take a minute to say, what does it really mean? You know, we hear it talked about. It's a very trendy word in the Church of England. and across the churches. But what does it really mean? Well, essentially, it relates to the development of new, creative, and contextual approaches to mission and ministry. And the purpose of pioneering is to extend the reach of our churches and forge new connections with those who either have little contact with faith and church or no contact at all. So extending the reach of our churches, but also forging new connections with people that we may not have come into contact with before. So this pioneering has taken on a slightly new and exciting character as we seek to collaborate further across this local area. You will know that we are forming this wider ministry group across our 5 churches because we think we can do more together and we can do better together. So that's where we were coming from. But we also recognise with this word pioneering that it might just get everybody's backs up because we already have established worshipping communities. And some of these worshipping communities have been here for hundreds and hundreds of years. There are people who've been part of them, not for hundreds and hundreds of years, although it may feel like that for many people in our churches. But people have been there for varying lengths of time and have seen all sorts of things happening and may well feel a bit skeptical or feel, oh my gosh, I've been involved in a million conversations like this, Steph, and nothing ever happens. So as part of our pioneering approach, we do need to value and affirm the many, many good things that are already happening in our churches, while also looking for new openings. So we recognise there may be things we're already doing that just need a bit of a tweak so that we can extend the reach of those groups and those people. And there's also some work to be done, we think, around developing a pioneering spirit within our congregations so that we're always talking about pioneering, so that we're always trying to equip and empower people to listen to what's going on around them and to respond to what's going on around them. So eventually, this isn't just the task of the clergy or the ministry team. Actually, everybody is feeling equipped and empowered to be pioneering in their own way. So we decided a number of months ago that it might be a really good idea to gather together the visionaries and prophets in our midst. Now, when we started the day at Ignite 22, I mentioned this and said, you know, we were talking about getting together prophets and visionaries, and the people who were there, some of them are here this evening, laughed and said, you can't possibly be talking about us. Well, I think the day spoke for itself, as you will see in a few moments' time. But we wanted to gather together people with ideas and insights, people with the gifts and skills to make connections with those outside of the established church community, people who may see themselves as being a bit on the edge or hungry for change, people who are passionate about making a difference, people who have been sitting on the seed of an idea for a really long time and wondering where they could take it. And so we extended this invitation across the churches and we said, come along with us, come and join this afternoon. It was only 3 hours. Bring your ideas with you and be prepared to work with others so that we can start to bring these ideas to fruition and see the benefits of them for our local area. We had a really, really positive response to that invitation. I think the branding and the marketing helped. I think when you pick that invitation up in church, you thought, oh, this sounds a bit, different. So on the 22nd of May of this year, we had about 20 people from across our churches. And we met at Your Space in Sutton, which is a social enterprise, a unique community project. And we deliberately wanted to meet outside of our churches to get outside of the walls of the buildings that can sometimes make us all feel constrained or confined or driven in a particular direction. And it happens to be a beautiful day, which always, I think, helps generate some energy around this kind of stuff. And after some prayer and some introductions, we started by exploring our history, because we wanted really to plumb the depths of the group that we had, and to just share local knowledge, local wisdom, so that we could get an understanding together of our journey to date, so that we could see whether there might be insights that could really help us going forward. That was a really rich time, actually, and a few interesting things emerged. I'll give you a couple of examples of those. We talked about the prominence and eminence of schools in this area since Tudor times. Schools have always been a big feature of this local area, and some of those schools, really well known in the past, continue to be well known in the present. So inevitably there's been a connection between churches and schools, but schools have been a really big feature. The other thing that came up as a theme, one of the other things that came up as a theme, was the impact of Sunday sport on church life and patterns of attendance. People really sort of shared their experience of that. Obviously, the pandemic sort of added to that, and has contributed to the demise of some of our congregations. But it was interesting to explore those wider societal issues that have impacted on the shape of our church lives and our worship. So it was tempting to sit there and dwell on the past, and hark back to a golden age where our churches were full of children and life, and we were doing wonderful things in the community, but we moved on from there. I should say also that through the day we had what we called the car park. So if anybody really wanted to have a moan about something, or say, I really wish we could talk about this, but there isn't time, we put it in the car park, with a view to coming back to that. So if you're desperate to know what came up in the car park, we can talk about that a bit later. And we moved on then to the central task of the afternoon, to come up with some pioneering initiatives around some key themes that had emerged from the registration process. When people signed up for Ignite, they had to fill in a questionnaire. And so we said to people, you know, what are the sorts of areas you're interested in? What do you feel a burning desire to make a difference in? And we took the responses that people made, and we came up with 3 categories. The categories were loneliness and grief, families and children, and those who are vulnerable. And we also had a kind of blank sheet of paper table. And we tasked everybody with moving around those 4 groups and putting their ideas down. So they had a time of free flow, and they could write anything from a fully worked up project plan to a few notes on a scrap of paper. It was really hard to get them to stop talking, I have to say. And at the end of that exercise, they came up with no less than 29 amazing ideas between them. Once the creative section of our afternoon sort of drew to a close, we then spent some time thinking about how we were going to make it work. And there were some important conclusions that we drew just on that afternoon, just from being together and surveying the landscape. We concluded that, firstly, we don't need to do it all by ourselves. A big feature of what we need to do going forward is partnership working with the voluntary sector and others. That will be key to achieving our ambitions, because many of the ideas that people had reminded others of things that were already going on, things that we might be able to join in with rather than start ourselves. Another important conclusion finding from the afternoon was that people in our churches need to feel that they have permission to go as far as they can with the ideas that they have. And people in our churches can feel easily disempowered. There's still something around dog collars and churches and people not feeling worthy enough or holy enough or good enough to do things on behalf of the church. And we really need to work hard at affirming people and giving them that permission and just saying, go for it. You know, you don't need to wait for anybody to say yes. Just talk to people, see how you can make this happen. And just to really, really encourage people. And the third thing we were able to say on the day is that communication is absolutely key. There's such a lot of work to be done. And even at the start of the day or the afternoon, when we were setting this out, people were asking what for me now feel like basic questions, because I've been thinking about them for a year. People were saying, so what is the purpose of all of this? Oh, yeah, that's really obvious, isn't it? Is it to grow our worshipping congregations, or is it to do new things? Well, probably a bit of both. But I realised there, and so did others, that even we as clergy have come quite far with this in a year, but we haven't always taken everybody with us. So we need to communicate as widely as possible at all times, which is one of the reasons why we're having this meeting tonight. This was a key part of our strategy going forward. We were like, right, let's have a meeting for anybody who wasn't there, who wants to know what's going on. So it's not happening behind closed doors. Anyone can join in at any time. So we need to take as many people as possible on the journey with us if we're going to make this happen. But also we need to develop our profile in the local community. We need people to be talking about us. We need people to be going, oh yeah, do you hear what they're doing in the churches in Cheam, Worcester Park, Belmont? Do you know what they're doing? Oh, they're working more closely together. Look at what they're doing, so that we are out there and people know who we are. So what's next? We sat with all of these ideas and thought, what is next? Where do we go? We started by getting some of the people who were there on the afternoon to do the filtering for themselves. And we said, actually, take your name label off that you came in with and put it down next to a project, so that we could get a feel for how many people were actually interested in doing some of these things. And we have put together a summary of the pioneering initiatives that came up. That is on page 5 of the report, so that you can quickly look at the range of things. In fact, look at that, Melody's got them. Oh, that's, there we go.
Can everyone see the summary?
Yeah, but there's a few big blocked out, oh, there we go, bits.
Yep. Okay, Steph.
Yeah, there's one more great, oh, perfect. So the ones in bold are the initiatives with most support from the people who were there. And the initiatives in sort of lighter grey are the ones where there's further development needed. So maybe that was one person's idea, but other people who were there didn't really express much of an interest or didn't have a chance to think about it, or it was a sort of new idea that needed a bit more development. So you can see something of the range of those ideas. And I'm still having conversations with people about new ideas that relate to those. I know Peter's here this evening, but he and I met yesterday, because actually for many years, Peter has had the idea of starting a gardening project that would help address or help people with mental health issues, or people who are vulnerable or lonely or struggling. A local gardening project that might give people a place to go to draw alongside other people and do something creative as a means of addressing mental health. And it's not that dissimilar from some other ideas that came up around that, about a grief group that might put grief on paper or loneliness on paper. other creative ways of expressing the reality of people's lives. So it's not the definitive list, but it is the list of things that came out from that day. So there's some sifting work that needs to be done around these ideas, because when we put out the Ignite invitation, we said we want to develop 2 to 3 change projects. There's a lot here. So we need to do some of the sifting work to get the ideas down to a handful of things that we really feel we can do. To that end, we have a meeting planned in a couple of weeks' time with people who, after the day, expressed an interest in working with us to sift through those ideas. And again, we are really, really open to having other people join in with that work. I haven't got the date to hand, Melody. It's the
Tuesday, the what is it?
I've got it. The 19th of July.
Yeah.
And that will be from 1 to 3 p.m.
Yeah.
And we're going to meet in St Dunstan's Church Hall, and we are going to sift those ideas, get them down to a handful, and that will be ready for our next Ignite meeting on Sunday, the 2nd of October, also 3 till 5. As you can see, Melody has been playing with ideas. Will it be Ignite or will it be Kindle?
That's teasing.
Yeah, it's very tempting, isn't it, to go down that rabbit hole, but we won't. But needless to say, Sunday the 2nd of October is the date for your diaries, should you wish to come and join us on the next leg of the journey. I think that's all I want to say about the report and the key findings. So if you haven't read it, you don't need to now, because I've just summarized it for you. But we do want to show you, before we go into questions and clarifications and what on earth were you talking about, Steph, sorts of comments, that is also on the screen, our plan for communication. So you can see what we have been doing already and what we intend to do going forward. Melody, shall we show the video now?
Show the video, yep.
Summarizes what happened on the day in a fun way and less wordy. But you have to keep up with the words on the screen.
There we go.
Thanks, Melody. So don't worry, we'll send that video round so you've got a chance to press pause and read it. But we wanted to give you a flavour of the day by showing you some pictures and so you could see for yourselves something of what it was like to be there. So over to you now. What I would suggest is that you use the raising your hand function to do that. If you go to reactions on the bottom of your screen, you'll see that there's a raise hand option for you. So if you do that, then we'll take questions accordingly, and also use the chat. You know, if someone's saying something and you want to clarify, use the chat as well. You can type any questions or put your own thoughts and comments there as well. So that's another option for you. But over to you.
Steph, I can't see a hand, but if we just put up our hands in the picture, will that do?
You can do that as well, Robin. That's absolutely fine. No problem.
Okay, lovely.
Gosh, silence.
I think you're still awake.
Oh, Sally.
Yes, Sally. Go for it.
You want to unmute Sally?
It can also be a comment. You don't have to ask a question. You can offer a reflection or a thought or a...
Yes, no, I just wanted to commend you actually for the work that was done, and to have a plan such as you've drawn up there with all those different ideas. I think that's been amazing, and I think it makes me feel very optimistic, to be honest, for the future, because too often in the past we've talked about things and then nothing really ever moves forward or changes, but this looks like it actually will. So I think it's, you know, it looks really good, and some very good ideas. So that's what I wanted to say. Well done, in fact.
Thanks, Sally. Really appreciate that. Of course, it's the scary bit now, isn't it? Because we've got the ideas on paper, we've got a nice looking report. We've just got to make it a concrete reality. So I think we feel a bit daunted by the task ahead. But, you know, we're not on our own and we're doing this together. So
If I might pause recording now, because people may not feel as keen. I'm going to pause.